When Melania Trump returned from her stylist on inauguration morning, she discovered a young boy sleeping beneath an umbrella in the hotel parking lot. What happened next changed everything. The early morning sun cast a soft glow over Washington, D.C. As Melania Trump's white Rolls-Royce glided through the quiet streets, the air was crisp and a biting wind chill served as a reminder of the winter's grip on the Capitol. Inside the luxurious vehicle, Melania sat poised and composed her mind already. Racing with the day's impending events, she had just returned from her stylist, where the final touches on her inauguration outfit had been meticulously applied, a sleek navy coat dress that exuded elegance paired with a striking silver brooch and a matching wide-brimmed hat that would surely turn heads as the car approached the Regal Washington, a high-end hotel reserved exclusively for VIPs and dignitaries attending the inauguration. Melania's gaze drifted to the quiet surroundings outside. The parking lot, usually bustling with activity, was eerily still in the dim light of dawn. Only a handful of security personnel stood vigilant at the entrance checkpoint, a stark contrast to the frenetic energy that would soon engulf the area. The Rolls-Royce came to a smooth stop, and one of the Secret Service agents stationed at the hotel approached with purposeful strides, with a quick professional nod to signal that all was secure. He stepped back as Melania's assistant moved to open the car door. Melania emerged from the vehicle with practiced grace, her movements fluid, and assured the cold air nipped at her exposed skin, but she maintained her composure, her eyes scanning the area with a mix of curiosity and caution. It was then that she noticed a change in the demeanor of the agents around her. One of the Secret Service members had frozen in place, his gaze fixed on an object a few feet away, following his line of sight. Melania spotted a half-open umbrella lying on the ground out of place. In the otherwise immaculate parking lot, the atmosphere instantly shifted as the agents tensed, their training kicking in as they moved to surround Melania. Protectively, with practiced efficiency, a small group of agents approached the umbrella, their movements cautious and deliberate as they drew closer. The tension in the air was palpable. Melania watched, her heart rate quickening slightly as the lead agent carefully inspected the area around the discarded umbrella. What they discovered was entirely unexpected. Curled up beneath the shelter of the umbrella was a young boy fast asleep and oblivious to the commotion he had inadvertently caused. The sight was so incongruous with the setting that for a moment everyone seemed frozen in surprise. The boy appeared to be no more than 9 or 10 years old. His blonde hair was disheveled, and his clothes bore lingering dampness of the previous night's rain. Beside him lay a small, worn backpack, a plastic water bottle, and an empty cup, meager possessions that spoke volumes about his circumstances as the agents carefully inspected the boy's belongings. They discovered the bag contained nothing but wet clothes and a few snacks, after surveying the surrounding area to confirm there was no immediate danger. Melania was struck by a wave of concern and curiosity. The child, so vulnerable and out of place amidst the pristine parking lot of a luxury hotel, was a mystery. She felt an undeniable urge to unravel, with a gesture from the lead agent indicating that the situation was under control. Melania made a decision despite the tight schedule of the day ahead and the potential security concerns. She knew she couldn't simply walk away. Taking a deep breath, she signaled her intention to approach the sleeping child, her compassion overriding protocol. For the moment, Melania approached the sleeping boy with cautious steps, her designer heels clicking softly on the asphalt. She couldn't help but wonder about the series of events that had led this young boy to seek shelter in such an unlikely place, On this historic day, the Secret Service agents remained alert, their eyes scanning the surroundings, even as they kept a watchful eye on the First Lady-to-be as she drew closer. Melania's expression softened, her political mask slipping away to reveal genuine concern for the child before her crouching down beside the boy, careful not to startle him. Melania gently placed a hand on his shoulder. "Hey," she whispered gently. "It's okay," she said, her voice calm and soothing. "You're safe." The boy stirred, his eyes fluttering open with confusion and fear. For a moment he seemed disoriented, unsure of where he was or who was speaking to him as awareness dawned. Though the boy's eyes widened with recognition and alarm, he shrank back instinctively, pressing himself against the wall behind him. One of the agents, reacting to the sudden movement, reached out to grab the boy's arm. Melania quickly held up a hand, stopping the agent advance. "No," she said firmly, but quietly, let him be, turning her attention back to the child. Melania spoke again, her accent lilting and gentle. "Hello there. My name is Melania. Can you tell me your name?" The boy remained silent, his eyes darting between Melania and the imposing figures of the Secret Service agents. Realizing the boy's fear, Melania tried a different approach. "You must be cold and hungry. We can't leave you out here. Would you like to come with us where it's warm? We could get you some food as well." She gestured towards the hotel, hoping to convey a sense of safety and comfort. The boy's gaze followed her hand, then returned to her, face uncertain, still evident in his expression. Melania continued, "I promise you no one here will hurt you. We just want to help. Can you stand up for me?" Slowly, hesitantly, the boy began to unfold himself from his curled-up position. As he did so, Melania noticed how his jacket hung loosely on his small frame, suggesting he hadn't had a proper meal in some time. Her heart ached at the sight. One of the agents, having already gathered the boy's meager belongings, stepped forward with the umbrella and backpack in hand. The lead agent, following protocol, reached out again to take hold of the boy's hand, intending to guide him to a secure location for questioning. The boy, seemingly terrified by the agent approach, suddenly lunged forward instead of trying to run away. However, he threw his arms around Melania, burying his face in the fabric of her newly expensive dress. Melania, caught off guard but quick to react, wrapped her arms around the trembling child, offering support and protection. The lead agent, looking somewhat flustered, began to explain. "Ma'am, I assure you the hotel's perimeter is secure. No unauthorized individuals should have been able to enter. It's okay. Colton, he's not dangerous." Melania raised a hand, silencing the agent mid-sentence. "I'm more worried about this little boy. He looks cold and hungry." Her focus remained on the boy clinging to her. She could feel his body shaking, whether from cold or fear. She couldn't be sure. Probably both, she thought, gently stroking the boy's hair. Melania spoke softly. "It's all right. You're safe now. Can you tell me why you were sleeping here?" She felt the boy shake his head against her dress, still unwilling or unable to speak. Melania looked up at the agents surrounding them, her expression a mix of determination and compassion. "We need to get him inside out of this cold. Then we can figure out what to do next." The agents exchanged glances, clearly uncertain about deviating from protocol, but none dared to argue with the soon-to-be First Lady as Melania began to guide the boy towards the quiet hotel entrance. She couldn't help but wonder about the circumstances that had brought this child to her on this momentous day. They made their way towards the hotel entrance, and Melania felt the boy's grip on her loosen slightly. She looked down at him, noticing his wide, curious eyes, taking in the grandeur of their surroundings. The opulent facade of the regal Washington loomed before them, its polished marble gleaming in the early morning light. Just as they walked past the administration desk, Melania's assistant Joy hurried towards them, a look of concern etched on her face. "Mrs. Trump," she said, slightly out of breath. "We need to go soon. If we don't finish up everything quickly, we'll be late for the inauguration." Melania nodded, recognizing the time constraint, but her decision was firm. She turned to the agents and asked, "Can we bring him with us for now in the car, at least until we figure out where he belongs?" The agents exchanged hesitant glances, their training clashing with the unorthodox request. After a brief moment of silent deliberation, the lead agent gave a measured nod of approval. Melania crouched to meet the boy's gaze, her voice soft and reassuring. "I need to head to my room for a little while to finish getting ready, but I'll be back soon with something to fill your stomach. Can you wait with my assistant?" "Joy and these kind agents in the car. I promise no one will hurt you or take you anywhere without my permission. Does that sound okay?" The boy, still looking unsure and a bit guilty, nodded slowly. His eyes darted between Melania and the others as if assessing his options. Finally, he whispered, "Okay." Melania smiled reassuringly. "Good. Now can you tell me your name?" The boy hesitated for a moment before responding softly. "Ethan. It's nice to meet you, Ethan," Melania said warmly. "I'll be back soon." "Promise." As the agents led Ethan back to the Rolls-Royce, Melania turned to Joy with a steady gaze. "Stay with him. Please make sure he's comfortable. And Joy, could you arrange something light for him to eat, something he can snack on while he waits in the carrel? So there's a children boutique in the hotel. Maybe find something warm for him to wear." Joy nodded, her hesitation brief as her professionalism took over in the face of the unusual situation. "Of course, Mrs. Trump. I'll handle it then." With a slight pause, she added, "And if you need anything, Mrs. Trump, the event organizer is here. At the hotel, you can also reach me directly." With a final glance at Ethan, who was now being settled into the car by Joy, Melania strode into the hotel, two agents following closely behind as she made her way to her suite. Her mind raced with questions about the mysterious boy and what circumstances had led him to that parking lot. Entering her room, Melania found herself in a quiet oasis amidst the growing bustle of the day. The agents took up their positions outside her door, giving her a moment of privacy. She moved to the vanity, checking her reflection and making minor adjustments to her carefully crafted appearance as she went through the motions of retrieving her personal items and finalizing her preparations. Melania found her thoughts continually drifting back to Ethan. There was something about the boy that tugged at her heart, a vulnerability that seemed at odds with the pomp and circumstance of the day ahead. Taking a deep breath, Melania centered herself. The inauguration was a pivotal moment, not just for her husband and their family, but for the entire nation. She needed to be focused and composed, yet as she stood in the luxurious suite surrounded by the trappings of power and privilege, she couldn't shake the image of a small boy sleeping under an umbrella in a cold parking lot. The contrast between wealth and want power and powerlessness struck Melania deeply. It was a stark reminder of the complexities and contradictions that came with the role she was about. To assume perhaps this was a signore that urged her to use her position to make a difference. Beginning with the young boy waiting in the car below, sharp knock at the door jolted Melania from her thoughts. She quickly gathered her purse notes and belongings, taking one final glance in the mirror to ensure everything was in place. As she opened the door, she was greeted by a woman standing between her Secret Service agents. "Mrs. Trump, I'm Anna, the event organizer," the woman said, offering a polite smile. "Joey informed me that you're in your room. I just wanted to go over the schedule with you. There's a prayer service at St. John's Episcopal Church before the inauguration events, and we need to be there by 8:30 a.m. Before that, you're requested at Blair Housey at 7:30 a.m. Anna paused, glancing at her clock. "It's 6:15 a.m. Now she then added, "I'll take care of the checkout and your belongings, so you don't need to worry about a thing." Melania nodded, appreciating the efficiency. "Thank you, Anna. That's very helpful." As they began walking towards the elevator, Melania found herself reflecting on the familiarity of the situation. This was, after all, her second time of inauguration ceremony, and moving into the White House, the thought brought a mix of emotions, pride, excitement, and a touch of trepidation. But this time she told herself it would be easier. She knew what to expect, what challenges lay ahead. And as they made their way through the hotel lobby, Melania exchanged brief greetings with some of the guests. She recognized politicians, diplomats, and other dignitaries who had gathered for the inauguration. Each interaction was polite, but quick, as everyone was acutely aware of the ticking clock. As Melania entered the parking lot, her eyes immediately found the white Rolls-Royce, where she knew Ethan would be waiting. As she approached, one of the agents opened the door for her, and she settled into the plush leather seat beside the boy, now wrapped in a new jacket and scarf, happily munching on his morning rolls. A wave of relief washed over Melania, grateful that Joy had taken such good care of him. Ethan looked up at her with wide eyes, a mixture of awe and nervousness evident on his young face. Melania offered him a reassuring smile before turning her attention to Joy, who was seated across from them. "Any updates on the schedule?" Melania asked, her tone professional, yet gentle. The chauffeur had already started the car, and they were slowly pulling away from the hotel. Joy nodded, pulling out her tablet. "Yes, Mrs. Trump, I've double-checked everything. We're still on track, but we can't make any stops if we're going to reach Blair Housey on time." She paused, then lowered her voice. "I've also contacted Child Services as per regulations. They're looking into the situation." Melania nodded, then turned her attention back to Ethan. "So, Ethan," she began gently, "can you tell me a bit more about yourself? Where are your parents?" The boy shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his fingers fidgeting with the hem of his worn jacket before he could respond. Joy's phone buzzed, she answered, putting it on speaker. "This is Marie Schatz from Child Services." A woman's voice came through the speaker. "We've had a report of a child missing from the nearby orphanage overnight. The description matches a 10-year-old blonde boy wearing a red clothes and jeans. Is this the child you have with you, Melania?" And Joy noticed that Ethan was wearing a long sweater, not the red clothes. The child service referred to, she was about to mention it when the lead agent spoke up, confirming that they had seen the red clothes in his bag earlier. They were soaked from the rain. The night before, Melania's gaze shifted to Ethan as his face paled. The boy shrank back into his seat, his hand instinctively reaching out to grasp hers. She squeezed his hand gently, her heart aching at the fear and uncertainty reflected in his eyes. Ethan, Melania said softly, "Is this true? Did you run away from the orphanage?" After a moment of tense silence, Ethan gave a small nod. Melania leaned in closer, her voice gentle but firm. "Can you tell me why you left?" Ethan's voice was barely above a whisper when he finally spoke. "Please don't be mad. I saw on TV that the president's event happening today. I wanted to see it to be there, but when I asked at the orphanage, they said it wasn't possible." His words came out in a rush now, so I thought maybe I could try by myself. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cause trouble." Melania's heart went out to the boy. His desire to be part of something big, something historic, was understandable, but the risks he had taken, the danger he'd put himself in, were sobering. "What about your parents?" Ethan, Melania asked, gently. "Do they know where you are?" Ethan's eyes welled up with tears. "I don't have parents anymore," he said, his voice cracking. "My dad. He died in the war." The car fell silent as the weight of Ethan's words settled over them. Melania found herself blinking, back tears moved by the boy's story and the bravery he had shown in his misguided adventure as the Rolls-Royce continued its journey towards the Blair house. Melania knew that her day had taken an unexpected turn. The glitz and glamour of the inauguration seemed far away as she sat next to this brave, lonely boy who had risked everything for a chance to be part of history as the Rolls-Royce glided through the streets of Washington, D.C. The atmosphere inside the car was thick with emotion. Melania, her hand still holding Ethan's, turned her attention back to the phone, where Marie Schatz from Child Services was still on the line. "M. Schatz," Melania began, her voice calm and controlled. "We have the boy with us. His name is Ethan, and he's confirmed that." He ran away from the orphanage. There was a brief pause before Marie responded, her tone a mix of relief and concern. "Thank you, Mrs. Trump. Ethan, can you hear me?" The boy nodded, then realizing the social worker couldn't see him, whispered a soft, "Yes." Marie's voice softened as she addressed Ethan directly. "You're a very brave boy, Ethan, but what you did was dangerous. The staff and your friends at the orphanage have been very worried about you. We need you to return." At these words, Ethan's grip on Melania's hand tightened. He looked up at her, his eyes pleading. "Mrs. Trump," he said, his voice barely audible, is there any way I could see the inauguration up close, not just on TV?" Melania felt torn. On one hand, she understood the importance of returning Ethan to the safety of the orphanage. On the other, she couldn't help but be moved by the boy's earnest desire to witness this historic event. "I'll think about it, Ethan," she said carefully, "but first we need to meet with Miss Schatz. It's important that we make sure everything is properly taken care of." After speaking to the child service, Joy reminded Melania once again that making a stop at the station would cause them to be late. She suggested that perhaps child services could meet them at Blair house instead, but Melania shook her head firmly, refusing. "I'll make time," she said, "and I won't let the boy be alone in the office." Turning to the driver, Melania instructed, "Please take us to the social worker's office," as the car changed direction. Melania couldn't shake a nagging feeling that there was more to Ethan's story. Something about the boy seemed familiar, though she couldn't quite place why the drive to the social services office was short. but to Melania it felt much longer. Her mind raced with questions about Ethan, about his past, and about the strange coincidence that had brought him into her life on this of all days. Upon arrival, they were swiftly escorted into a private room where a child support worker was already waiting. As the necessary paperwork was quickly prepared, Melania couldn't help but study Ethan's face more intently. The nagging feeling of familiarity intensified, growing stronger with each passing moment. Something about him seemed hauntingly recognizable, yet she couldn't put her finger on it. Ethan, the Child Services. M. Schatz asked gently, "What's your full name?" And the boy looked up at her, a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. "Ethan Corson," he replied, while Miss Schatz typed Ethan's name into the system. It struck Melania like a thunderbolt. Corson, she knew that name memories surged forward of a dedicated ex-Navy officer who had served as one of her closest Secret Service agents during her husband's first campaign. The man had left behind a stable, well-paying job to volunteer for a special operation in Afghanistan when the army called for experienced soldiers, and he had lost his life there. Leaving behind, Melania's thoughts were interrupted by the Child Services asking Ethan about his family. The boy's response confirmed her sudden realization. "My dad, Ethan," began, his voice quavering slightly. "He was a sawyer. He used to work for the president, but he died in the war. I don't have any family left." The room seemed to spin around. Melania, as the full weight of the situation settled upon her, this wasn't just any orphaned child who had stumbled into her path. This was the son of a man who had given his life in service to his country, a man who had once been tasked with protecting her own life. In that moment, Melania made a decision. She knelt beside CRI Ethan, looking directly into his eyes. "Ethan," she said, her voice filled with emotion, "I knew your father. He was a brave and honorable man. I want you to know that I'm going to make sure you're taken care of. I promise to support you." Ethan's eyes widened in surprise and hope. Melania continued, "And about your wish to see the inauguration, I think we can make that happen, but first we need to return to the orphanage and talk to your guardian. Is that okay with you?" The boy nodded enthusiastically, a smile breaking across his face for the first time since they'd met. Melania stood, turning to Joy. "Cancel my attendance at Blair House. I want to personally accompany Ethan back to the orphanage. Tell them that I'll still make it to St. John's Episcopal Church." Joy looked concerned, but Mrs. Trump, Melania said firmly, "This is important. It's about honoring Ethan's father and all those who have sacrificed for our country." The decision made, Melania, Ethan, and their entourage left the social services office and headed towards the orphanage. The Rolls-Royce wound its way through the streets of Washington, D.C., the familiar landmarks passing by in a blur as Melania's mind raced with thoughts of what lay ahead beside her. Ethan sat quietly, his earlier excitement tempered by a mix of nervousness and anticipation. Melania glanced at him, noting the way he fidgeted with the hem of his worn jacket, his eyes darting between the car window and her face. "Ethan," Melania said softly, drawing the boy's attention, "I want you to know that what you did was very dangerous. Running away is never the answer, no matter how much you want." Something. The boy lowered his head, shame coloring his cheeks. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Melania's expression softened. "I understand why you did it, though. Your father was a brave man who served his country, and you wanted to be part of something important just like him. But there are safer ways to honor his memory. And to be part of history, Ethan looked up at her, his eyes wide with curiosity. Really how well Melania said, a small smile playing on her lips for starters. I'm going to make sure you get to see the inauguration up close. But more than that, I want to help you build a future that would make your father proud. That means staying safe, getting a good education, and finding positive ways to make a difference in the world. As she spoke, Melania could see hope blooming in Ethan's eyes. It was a stark reminder of the power of kindness and the impact that even small gestures could have on a child's life. The car pulled up to the orphanage, a modest building with a sign that read, Hope Haven Children's Home. As they stepped out of the vehicle, Melania could feel the eyes of curious onlookers upon them. It wasn't every day that a soon-to-be First Lady visited this quiet neighborhood. The orphanage workers, alerted to their arrival, rushed out to greet them. Their expressions were a mix of awe at Melania's presence and relief at seeing Ethan safe and sound. A woman in her 50s, with kind eyes and graying hair, pulled back in a neat bun, stepped forward. Mrs. Trump, I'm Mom. Jessie, the head of staff here at Hope Haven. We can't thank you enough for bringing Ethan back safely. Melania shook Jessie's hand warmly. It's my pleasure, Mom. Ethan's safety is what's most important. But if you don't mind, I'd like to speak with you privately about his situation. Jessie nodded, leading them into a small office. Once inside, Melania explained her connection to Ethan's father and her desire to help the boy. I'd like to grant Ethan's wish to attend the inauguration. Melania said, not just watching from outside, but as a special guest. I know it's short notice, but I believe we can make the arrangements. Jessie's eyes widened. In surprise, Mrs. Trump. That's incredibly generous of you, but are you sure the inauguration is such an important event? And Ethan is, well, he's just a child. Melania's expression was resolute. Ethan may be a child, but he's also the son of a hero who gave his life for this country. I believe he deserves to be there to see firsthand the democracy his father fought to protect. Jessie considered this for a moment, then nodded slowly. If you're certain, then we'd be honored. But Mrs. Trump, the weather outside is freezing. I'm worried about Ethan standing in the cold for hours. That won't be necessary. Melania assured her, I'll provide special guest badges for Ethan and yourself. You'll be inside, observing the event in comfort and safety. Ethan, who had been listening quietly, could no longer contain his excitement. Really, we get to go inside. Melania turned to Ethan with a warm, reassuring smile. Yes, Ethan, but remember, this is a very long and important day, and we're not going to the White House directly. We'll be going to the church first. You must promise me that you'll be strong and stick with me until the end. Can you do that? Ethan nodded vigorously, his face beaming with joy. I promise I'll be on my best behavior, just like Dad would want me to be. Jessie crouched down to Ethan's level, her voice gentle but firm. You're always so brave, just like your father. But please don't make running away a habit. Okay? You scared us all. Very much. Ethan's expression turned serious as he nodded. I'm sorry, ma'am. Jessie. I won't do it again. He promised. Melania watched the interaction with a mixture of emotions. She was moved by the obvious care Jessie had for Ethan, and by the boy's earnest desire to make amends. It was a poignant reminder of feral human stories that often lay hidden behind the grand narratives of politics and power as they prepared to leave Melania. Turn to Joy. Please prepare 2 guest badges for Ethan and Mom. Jesse, and make sure they have everything they need for the day. Joy nodded already, tapping away on her tablet to make the necessary arrangements before they left. Jessie spoke quietly with the other workers, asking for their help in looking after the children while she was gone. The sense of community and mutual support was palpable, and Melania found herself even more determined to help not just Ethan, but the entire orphanage in whatever way she could as they walked back to the car. Ethan's excitement was infectious. Even the usually stoic Secret Service agents seemed to have a hint of a smile on their faces. Melania felt a warmth in her heart that went beyond the day's historic significance in the mid of all the pomp and circumstance. She had found a way to make a real, tangible difference in a child's life. As the Rolls-Royce pulled away from Hope Haven heading towards the church, and the momentous events that awaited Melania knew that this unexpected detour had given her a new perspective on Thurl. She was about to assume it wasn't just about being in the spotlight or supporting her husband's policies. It was about using her position to touch lives, to bring hope to those who needed it most, with Ethan's bright-eyed wonder beside her and the weight of her promises to him in her heart. Melania felt more ready than ever to step into her role as First Lady of the United States. The Rolls-Royce glided through the streets of Washington, D.C., its tinted windows shielding the occupants. From the curious gazes of onlookers inside, the air was thick with anticipation. Melania sat poised, her navy coat dress, immaculate, the silver brooch catching the early morning light that filtered through the windows beside her. Ethan sat quietly, his eyes wide with wonder as he took in the passing scenery, occasionally glancing at Melania with a mix of awe and nervousness as they approached St. John Episcopal Church. Melania turned to Ethan and Jessie. "Weck be stopping at the church first for a private service," she explained, her voice gentle but firm. "Joy will escort you inside, but please remember to be quiet and respectful. This is a very important tradition for us. Can you do that?" Ethan nodded solemnly, his hands fidgeting in his lap. Jessie placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder, her eyes conveying gratitude to Melania. The car came to a smooth stop in front of the historic yellow church, its white spire reaching towards the crisp blue sky. It was 8:30 a.m. and the air was bitingly cold. As Melania stepped out of the vehicle, she could hear the muffled sounds of the gathering crowd beyond the security perimeter, a low hum of excitement and anticipation. Secret Service agents flanked her as she made her way up the church steps, the click of her heels on stone drowned out by the whir of distant cameras and the rustle of bare tree branches in the winter wind. Melania paused for a moment at the top of the steps, turning to give a small wave to the crowds before disappearing into the warmth of the church. Inside, the scent of old wood and candle wax enveloped her. The light was soft and golden, filtering through stained glass windows and casting colorful patterns on the worn wooden pews as Melania made